To the upset masses.
This is the debut of our new shortened, sweetened intro video.
Yeah.
And Joey's ready to take flack for
it. I am. I got it on. I'm ready to go. Go ahead.
Bombs away. Man, I know that we're not old enough for those duck and cover drills, but I feel like, which I mean is a good thing, considering why they were practiced in the first place. I hope to not bring that back anytime soon. Now he's ready.
Come on, let's see how many more we got here. We got this one doesn't even. It's not even gonna try. Let's see. What else? Oh, we got maybe the most important one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there you go.
Right there. Yeah.
Ye old brain bucket.
Yeah. Got that one, and I mean, we go really crazy. I could jump nationalities and everything.
There you
go. No. How about? Okay. I promise I didn't plan this. This is just all the stuff that's just right.
Welcome to Home Brew History, and here's all of our hats.
Welcome. I am a man of many hats, as I've been told from time to time. Fashionable forage cap. Little kepi action. No, I don't even know anymore. I'm just surrounded by stuff. I mean, this is an entire box of dice and markers for wargaming. I have W.E.B. Du Bois's Black Reconstruction in America. A 4th Infantry patch in case anyone should happen to need it.
Never know.
Oh, and finally making his return to Homebrew History for the first time.
Monty!
He's back.
He's back.
I missed him. Let's see. What other junk do we have?
I'm scared to look around me.
Actually, this is kind of cool. I don't know. It's cool for me. It's probably not cool for any other adult, but I have a 1/6 scale doll version action figure of General Roy Urquhart now.
I think I've seen him at least 5 times.
You think? Really? When?
When I've helped you move 5 times.
Oh. I was thinking I can't think of a time where he made a debut on the show. Although
no, he has not. This is the first time on the show. Which
I mean, should he become our mascot?
Well, I mean, we have the guy in the bottom right-hand corner.
Can he be our mobile mascot?
He could.
I mean, look, dude, I got. There's so much stuff.
You don't realize how much stuff you have until you have to move it.
There's a sewing machine in here. I don't even sew. That's not mine.
I may reap, but I don't sew.
I mean, this is not at all what the show is about. But,
no, it isn't.
Look at that. Come on. That's pretty cool.
I feel like that actually might be one of the members of Ham and Jam.
It could be. I don't know. That doesn't really look much like Kevin or Andy. But
maybe the Red Beret gave it.
I mean, it definitely gives off a certain Sean Connery vibe.
It does.
You see him saying "Tea, what's that to do? Make it better."
I like my British airborne shaken, not stirred.
That was good.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I don't say that often, and no one has said it to you often enough. But
someone mark that down.
Good. Put that one in the win column for Bo. Joey gave him a compliment tonight.
There we go. All right.
Actually, I got to give you a couple compliments because you're the one. You kind of came up with the topic and did all the show notes and everything for this. I mean, it just took me moving and finally unpacking from my cross-country venture into a new house to get you to do.
I do what I can. I love you a little.
Do we tell dear listener about our secret plans, or do we hold them as plans?
I think we tease them now, and at the very end we let it slip.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think I want to let it slip. I think we're just gonna tease.
Let's
just tease.
Just get him to come back.
all I'm saying is maybe we're having a brief discussion about the most decisive naval action in Second World War.
Maybe.
Maybe we're also having a brief discussion about a battle that took place over 3 days in Adams County, Pennsylvania, with some pretty cool esteemed guests. Anyways,
I can see.
That's what's going on in our neck of the woods.
What we are here to talk about tonight
is that Homebrew History is brought to you by Civil War Trails. Civil War Trails, the world's largest outdoor museum. You weren't expecting that. I was waiting. You got me in waiting. I was ready. The world's largest outdoor museum. Get out there, make some history of your own. Travel the paths of armies as they fought through the nation's most decisive conflict and our most defining conflict. So be sure to head over to civilwartrails.org, find out some more information, and request some free brochure maps. That'll aid you on your next road trip. You know, I'm following along right now with our pal and dear friend and good listener and great listener and supporter of the show, Scott Bumpus. Scott's out on the way to Gettysburg, and he got into Gettysburg yesterday, so he's there for CWI, Civil War Institute, week-long kind of programs and all kinds of stuff. He is there sitting, waiting, absorbing all that there is to take in. But he followed Civil War Trails to get there. So that you were wondering, where's he going? That's it.
Here it is.
He used the trails. He used the trails of work to do it. If you want to keep listening to this and keep, letting us do our thing, go down there to the Buy Me a Coffee page. In fact, I think, 2-3 days ago?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Yeah, 2 or 3 days ago, I popped in with another one of our musings. So go ahead, check that out. Be sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and be sure to subscribe to the Buy Me a Coffee, where you can become a financial supporter of Bo and I. Always very nice. And if you look down there in the bottom corner of your screen, you will see the mascot of Homebrew History. Okay, so how about that? The mascot of Homebrew History. A mascot.
The traveling one.
Does that work? Can
I
he
like
be like a portable?
One. Yeah, the portable mascot. I like that.
He's our air landing mascot.
Let him cook. He's cooking here.
Let him cook. Let the man cook, I said.
He's doing something. Wait.
Frankly, I was doing something. So check out our designs by the Bearded Historian. You can go onto his Etsy page. Links down there in the description as well. And as always, please like and subscribe and help us continue to grow our little seedling of a YouTube channel here into a great oak that will one day, or maybe it's a great cherry tree to go with our topic for the night. Are we talking about George?
Yes.
Or is this this is a good place to put in a commercial break, naturally.
Which one? You'll have to come back.
For commercial.
I was going to say you have to come back.
All right. Well, let's do that. And now we're going to have to talk about George, because
it's true.
Which I think, honestly,
George.
George, is he the George?
He's actually as close as you're probably going to get, because he is a George W, but he's not the George W.
That's not
close second.
Close. Not quite.
George Orville, not to be mistaken with Orville Redenbacher. Right? Yeah, no relation. Bug-eyed George.
Different George. At one point fights this George. But still not the George.
Not the George. That is the young George Washington that we're going to talk about tonight. It's funny, and you're a fellow historian. Do your friends who are non-historians send you historically related memes?
No, most of them know not to do that.
That's fair. I have some that still do, and some of them they find as bangers. And one of them was, young George Washington's was 6'2", and he ran like a 4.40. He was playing for the wrong Patriots. The New England Patriots need help since Tom Brady's been gone. We know that. It's terrible. They need help. But thank God I'm not with the Patriots. I hate the Patriots.
I mean, your team's no better. You're a Cowboys fan, but
we all have our sins. We all have our vices.
What about the Steelers? Since we're going to talk about Pennsylvania,
what are they doing? They are hiring the old man.
He's basically dead in my book.
Yeah. He's got the opportunity to do the funniest thing.
Take a bunch of their money and tear his other.
Yeah, the other one. Yeah.
Break it. Just break the other one.
Just that poor man.
You know what?
I didn't realize the Steelers were that desperate.
Apparently, Mike needs another. McDonald needs another championship before the.
He needs another headache.
Well, shall we? History first noticed George Washington in 1753, and a daring and resourceful 21-year-old messenger sent on a dangerous mission into the American wilderness. He carried a letter from the governor of Virginia, Robert Dinwiddie, addressed to the commander of French troops in that vast region of the Blue Ridge Mountains and south of the Great Lakes that Virginians called the Ohio Country. He was ordered to lead a small party over the Blue Ridge, then across the Allegheny Mountains, there to rendezvous with an influential Indian chief called the Half King. He was then to proceed to the French outpost at Presque Isle, now present-day Erie, Pennsylvania, where he would then deliver his message in the name of His Britannic Majesty. The key passage in the letter that he was carrying, so it turned out, represented the verbal opening shot in what American colonists would call the French and Indian War. The lands upon the River Ohio and the western parts of the colony of Virginia are so notoriously known to be the property of the Crown of Great Britain that it is a matter of equal concern and surprise to me to hear that a body of French forces are erecting fortresses and making settlements upon that river within His Majesty's dominations. The world first became aware of young Washington at this moment, and we get our first extended look at him. Because of Dinwiddie's urging, he published an account of his adventures, the Journal of Major George Washington, which appeared in several colonial newspapers and was then reprinted in magazines in England and Scotland. Though he was only an emissary, the kind of valiant and agile youth sent forward against odds to perform a hazardous mission, Washington's journal provided readers with a first-hand report on the mountain ranges, wild rivers, and exotic indigenous peoples within the interior regions that appeared on most European maps as dark and vacant spaces. His report foreshadowed the more magisterial account of the American West provided by Lewis and Clark more than 50 years later. It also, if inadvertently, exposed the somewhat ludicrous character of any claim by His Britannic Majesty, or any European power for that matter, to control such of an expansive frontier that simply swallowed up and spit out European presumptions of civilization.
Cool.
Joseph Ellis, in His Excellency, will help us follow the life of George Washington. But I mean,
that was eloquent.
You get.
I know. Especially with what we know, about this whole event, and what Joey's talking about is a young Washington in the early days of the French and Indian War, something that. He doesn't have the hindsight, but luckily, we do. So that's going to be the topic of discussion this evening is how Washington gets entangled in all of this, because really he's, the one that's sort of commanding, colonial militia forces that are really going to start the whole fire of this whole situation. So one of the things that's incredibly interesting is early on in Washington's life, at around age 16, or so, especially in the spring months of 1748, he's actually hired by Lord Thomas Fairfax, which Fairfax, he is part of the landed gentry there in Virginia, someone that Washington hopes takes him under his wing, someone who Washington definitely wants to take inspiration from. So Fairfax actually hires him to survey some western lands in Virginia. Now, Joey, at age 16, what are you doing?
Not that.
Not that. I'm definitely not surveying the lands of western Virginia. At 16, I'm probably worried about acne. I'm probably worried about getting my driver's license.
Never had that problem. Never
Really?
did anything. Yeah. Yeah.
I had it for
hats.
Huh?
I didn't wear hats. Apparently, like if you sweat and you wear hats, no, didn't do it.
I sweat sitting down, so that doesn't bother me. But I did wear hats because I played baseball. So yeah, maybe you're onto something there.
Yeah. Medical journals. What can you say?
What can you say?
What are we going to say?
This experience.
Try not to die in their ears, please.
Sorry, I'm doing what I can. It is this experience in Western Virginia that will assist him later in life because, and one of the biggest problems too for a young Washington is, especially in North America, the lands between the 13 colonies and New France. The borders between these two places is very clearly undefined, especially in the Ohio River Valley. Here's where the problem lies. Oftentimes, both the French and the British will sign land treaties with a variety of different Native American tribes. The problem is that these treaties oftentimes contradicted each other. And we know that any time that, especially things like land treaties contradict one another, that can cause confusion, it can cause conflict, and of course it can cause bloodshed. And this is exactly what it's going to cause. So Joey read just a little bit earlier from Ellis's book that there was French presence in the Ohio River Valley. In fact, around 1753, there's a French aristocrat by the name of the Marquis Duquesne. He was the one that sort of oversaw the development of French forts and forces in the Ohio River Valley. What the Marquis Duquesne is trying to do, he is trying to establish a connection between Lake Erie and that of the Allegheny River. One of the more important forts that is under his supervision is that of Fort LeBoeuf. And I guess kind of reading into the early days of the French and Indian War for young George Washington, I find it kind of funny that the French and Indian War starts for him on Halloween, October 31st, 1753.
Bad timing. Ghouls and goblins.
Ghouls, goblins, and, well, George Washington.
And George.
And
Ghouls,
George.
goblins, and George. It's the three G's of the apocalypse. You know it's a late night episode, right?
Ghouls, goblins, and George, the three-headed horseman. Oh Lord, that's hilarious. I love that. So because
that's what we'll call the episode.
Yeah, late night with Washington.
That sounds dirty. That sounds.
Yeah.
That's an adult.
Sorry, guys. Sorry.
We're not putting that on YouTube.
I'm sorry, Martha. I don't mean anything by it.
Martha, why'd you have to say that name?
Oh, Lord.
Anyway, so George Washington he gets in 1753, and all of a sudden he starts interacting with not only Indian tribes and like local native people, but we also runs into the French, which for an Englishman, technically he is an Englishman. This is never a great thing.
No, and I don't know. Would you say it's really the First World War that kind of brings France and Britain finally together?
You know, I'm actually reading about that in Margaret Macmillan's book. Yeah. But even then, like, still not great.
Yeah.
It's not so much a rivalry. It's just like, we're old enemies, but just really don't like those Germans.
Yeah.
Never like those Germans at all.
I don't love you guys. I kind of like you, but I hate, loathe, even.
Yeah. But she actually makes a really good point. I was reading it the other night. That it effectively takes World War II to get the British and the French on side, and 1940 could have derailed that.
Yeah.
Very easily.
Oh, 100%.
But like that was what kind of at least fosters that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But for right now, in George's day, they all hate symbols.
Very much so. But because Washington does have the experience in land surveying out there in Western Virginia, and you mentioned him a little bit earlier, which he still arguably holds the funniest colonial governor name in, I think, all of colonial American history, is
Dinwiddie?
Governor Robert Dinwiddie.
Yeah.
I have yet to find a funnier name. But Dinwiddie actually selects Washington for this journey to the Ohio River Valley to basically tell the French to kick rocks. Well, and to be fair to our listeners, where did I get the inspiration for this? Well, I'm actually teaching colonial America in the fall, so I actually picked up a new book called The War That Made America, A Short History of the French and Indian War by Fred Anderson. Also, Fred Anderson, if you're listening to this, I know two
Check
guys.
your email.
Check your email. I've sent you a lovely, lovely email to hopefully have you on the
Anybody
show.
knows Fred? You know.
And if you know a Fred, but hopefully this Fred.
Any Fred will do.
Bring the Flintstones. Bring Fred from the Mystery Machine and Scooby Doo. Either one.
I'll take that, Fred.
Yeah. Well, Fred Anderson, he writes this. He says, why the governor picked a 21-year-old major of the Virginia militia for this mission, a man who spoke no French, had little formal education, and utterly lacked diplomatic experience, may not seem intuitively obvious. Young Washington, however, had several qualifications. He had the backing of Lord Thomas Fairfax, which we just talked about, who approved of the work of Washington that he had done for him as a surveyor. He had an intense ambition to prove himself worthy of public trust and thus to rise in the ranks of the planter gentry. And he had both the willingness, and I like this word that he uses, and the hardihood to undertake a 500-mile journey under miserable conditions in the late fall and winter of the year 1753. Yeah, so he's 21 years old. He's a major in the Virginia militia, and the governor comes up to him. He's like, dude, look, if you travel like 500 miles that way, you're going to eventually run into some French. And when you get there, tell them to skedaddle or scram or leave, whatever. Oh, and here's a letter. I put it more eloquently in this letter. Could you deliver it to them? And Washington's like, yeah, I'm 21 years old. My frontal cortex hasn't developed all the way yet. Let's do it.
All I know is daring do. Things to
dare and do, as it were.
I mean, go back real quick just to that passage that Ellis included, that the letter says, the lands upon the river Ohio and the western plains of the colony of Virginia are so notoriously known to be the property of the Crown of Great Britain that it is a matter of equal concern and surprise to me to hear that a body of French forces are erecting fortresses and making settlements upon that river within his Majesty's dominions.
Yeah, it's almost like he's clutching his pearls.
Yeah.
How dare they? Yeah. A Frenchman on our lands.
I mean, admittedly, if the French were on my land, I would be upset too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying that my people...
That's for Bill.
Maybe got kicked out of Canada for losing a war.
Yeah. If we're on the French land, that we have a problem, but this one's for Bill.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell the French to leave.
I'm here to tell them to leave. And
so is George.
That's what George Washington is also tasked to do. So Washington good man. So Washington does. He takes this 500-mile journey, and it is arduous. He's got to deal with all kinds of things, from horrible weather to combative native tribes as well. Well, by December of the same year, 1753, Washington is able to arrive at Fort Lebeau, mostly unscathed. He delivers Governor Dinwiddie's letter to the French commander of Fort Lebeau, a guy by the name of Captain Jacques de Saint-Pierre, which is, again, arguably one of the most French names ever, Jacques de Saint-Pierre. Well, 2 days later, which this is, I don't know, the French kind of like have him wait it out. But after 2 days of discussion, obviously I think the French take this as sort of a humorous thing. And they take 2 days, they come up with their response, which is essentially no. It's not going to happen. We're already here. We've already built Fort LeBeau in the Ohio River Valley. it's not. We're not going anywhere. These are lands claimed by the French monarch. Only he can tell us otherwise. So
You mean
Washington, yeah, exactly that one, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Um, is it? I think it's in Shakespeare. I think Shakespeare says, "I bite my thumb at you."
that is
Um,
Shakespeare? But yeah,
yeah.
I mean, do you think the French? Do you think the French are even at all threatened by this guy and a band of Virginia militiamen, or do you think they're just like, okay, one of the strongest empires in the world is here and is making its claim to this land? Will you please
Yeah,
just
I think it's the latter. And especially because they're like, well, we're here first. Clearly, we've established a fort. Therefore, it is our land. And some, royal governor in the colony of Virginia is trying to scare us off with a letter. Ooh, it's really not that big of a deal. Um, so Washington effectively has his answer, which, as the Spanish say, no, as the English say, also no. Um, by January of the following year, 1754, so just about a month and a week later, Washington is able to return to Williamsburg, Virginia, where he gives Governor Dinwiddie the French response, which is effectively no. Well, for Washington's efforts on this arduous 500-mile journey, he is actually promoted in the Virginia militia to lieutenant colonel in the spring of 1754. And you mentioned earlier Washington's journal, right?
mm-hmm.
So Washington's journal, like Ellis said, gives us a very unique.
Sorry, I have to put this up here. I must. I was a god once.
Oh my God.
I keep this one corked up for whenever I talk about the Virginia colonies.
Oh my God, I love that.
Isn't that perfect?
Please send that to me. I think I just found a new slide in my Colonial America class, but only they're going to get it. Yeah, only they're. God, I love that.
For the listener who doesn't get to see YouTube, well, go to YouTube and subscribe and follow along for the fun. But it's it's a map of Virginia as Virginians saw it in 1692, and then again by 1776, and then again by 1792, and then by 1863, where the state of Virginia has now been formed. It's just great. And the caption is, I was God once, but
I was. It's like, okay, Grandpa, time for bed.
Are you sure? Did you take your meds?
Yeah. Did you drink your prune juice? So Washington's journal, it does provide us a very unique perspective, especially, it gives us a glimpse into a lot of things, especially frontier diplomacy. But this expedition to Fort LaBeouf is absolutely crucial to the development of a young Washington, because what he learns is something incredibly important. He really learns the complexities of not only leadership. Sorry. I don't know where I went. My computer was just like, oh, hey, he's too ugly. Let's go ahead and cut him off. My God. Yeah, Jesus. Anyway, this is absolutely crucial to Washington because he does learn the complexities of leadership and political allegiances, especially between French and other native tribes and the English and also other native tribes as well. Well, Washington, he does, during this expedition, Washington actually met up with the Shawnee and the Seneca native tribes, which sometimes the Seneca are known as the Mingos. And Washington hoped to kind of form a British alliance with these native tribes. But more importantly, Washington actually meets with the Mingo or the Seneca chief. And you mentioned him a little bit earlier, the half king, a guy by the name of Chief Charison. Well, Charison was eager to kind of forge an Anglo-native alliance because he knew what that sort of brought to the Seneca tribe. Well, the sort of new Anglo-native alliance, if you will, between really the Virginia militia and the Mingos tribe really have their first glimpse of what it means to be partners in the colonial frontier. if you will. On the 28th of May, 1754, the now Lieutenant Colonel George Washington and Chief Tanacharson led a raiding party of about 40 men or so against some French soldiers in what is now modern-day Pennsylvania. Well, this raid kills about 10 Frenchmen. It also results in the capture of another 21. Washington had no idea that this raid would absolutely set the world on fire. And this attack represents the first bloodshed of what we now know as the French and Indian War. And I know they say that, hindsight's always 20/20, but it is here. Washington has no idea that what he's about to, experience in this raid is going to culminate in almost a decades-long conflict here in North America. Well, this raid included Virginia militiamen. It also included native warriors under the command of Chief Tanacharson. By Washington's own account, upon seeing the Virginians advancing on their position, the French grabbed their weapons, obviously for their own defense, forcing Washington's men to open fire, thus killing around 10 men and leading to the capture of another 21. After about 15 minutes or so, the fighting this little skirmish kind of comes to an end, and the French surrender to Washington. Now, here's the problem, though, is that the details of this skirmish are a bit hazy. It's one of those he said stories. The French claim they had no idea. They had no clue about Washington's men until the very first volley. Whereas they also claim that Washington's men were executing some of the wounded Frenchmen after the skirmish had taken place. But in Washington's journal, Washington writes, and he states, that it was Tanacharson's men that are executing the French, and they are scalping these French dead as sort of war trophies to prove to their native allies as well, because they're allied with other native tribes as well, that war has begun here, and this is sort of the rallying cry, if you will, and all of this sort of just happens so quickly and so rapidly. The French claim that the men that were attacked here in western Pennsylvania, these men were ambassadors under the command of a man by the name of Joseph Jumonville. He is actually one of the 10 that's actually killed in this skirmish, and the skirmish becomes known as the Jumonville-Glen skirmish, or sometimes just simply put, the Jumonville affair.
Jumonville-Glen.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're killing me with you're Mr. Frenchman and you're butchering his name.
I don't claim that. My mustache might.
It's
my twirl.
I can do that now.
I'm more German than anything, but.
Yeah, you don't get to do the c'est bon thing anymore. I'm taking that.
Well, that's Cajun. That's not French.
Revoked.
Yeah. Cajun and French are two totally different things.
Your French-speaking pass is revoked.
Yeah. Only the French people can do that.
The other day I was at work and there were a group of 38 Frenchmen that came in, and no one could speak to them. And I walked out and I was like, okay, I'm confident that I'm just rusty enough to piss them off. And
were you?
Maybe. I was competent. Competent. They just thanked me and said, "C'est bon, merci," and then walked on. But I stumbled us through. Hey, here's a map. Let me know if you have any questions.
Hey.
So hey, I'll take it. I'll take it. But at this point, right now, as we stand, scorekeeping, I'm better at French than you are.
I will make no claims of being.
You want to pass the words off and say, "Hey, check outline page 3. What's this word?" I got you, homie. I got you.
I know how to get to a library or a bathroom in Spanish, and that's really the only two places I think I need to be.
It'd be a hell of a shame if you mix those up.
Yeah.
Don't stop the biblioteca. Wait, no, I need the bathroom.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. I wish I was better at languages, but I'm terrible.
I wish I had the patience for it. I can barely speak English. So
yeah. I know.
And put a microphone in front of me and said, "Talk, monkey," and so here I am.
Here we are. Again, what our opinions are worth? Well, not a Coke at McDonald's, so take that what you will.
Okay, you said McDonald's. I got to tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say something. I've been taking my health very seriously, and I've been watching my weight and watching what I eat, and doing good. And I like to say, I've done well. I just wanted to see, because I keep seeing, TikToks and such for it and ads. I tried the new McCrispies, McCrispy strips, buns.
Yeah, crap.
They were just bad. The only thing that was good about it was the creamy chili sauce.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the only thing that gave it any flavor.
That's it.
Like, I've never had a more flavorless chicken tender than that one. And like, look, I like Raising Cane's for the nostalgia of Raising Cane's. I will admit to you that chicken doesn't taste like anything without sauce. I would take 1,000 Cane's chicken tenders.
Yep.
Over one of those McDonald's chicken strips to never have to eat it again.
Yeah, because them things are made of donkey.
Now, let me put you on something. That creamy chili sauce on a Raising Cane's chicken finger, or that creamy chili sauce on a Chick-fil-A chicken finger, slaps.
It was you and I that made a Cane's pizza that one time, wasn't it?
Yes, we've done that.
I remember.
That was a good, very fat thing to do.
That was a very fat thing to do.
We are big back, and we will always be.
Yep, my back's about as big as a football field.
Although I'm shrinking. My back is shrinking. My back is much smaller than it once was.
Mine is about the same size, but it's a bit muscular, a little bit more.
There's some poor sap listening to this that was like, I tuned in for Washington.
I did. Yeah, we're sorry.
Where's the many adventures of George Washington? He's buried somewhere in all the asides and digressions.
It's true. But we promised to always bring it back. So after that's a long-winded way of coming back.
I bet he would have wished for some of these chicken tenders during the winter at Valley Forge. Bam, there we go.
Gotcha. 100%.
But 30 years earlier.
Yes, but 30 years earlier, prior to all that. And so after that, this seemingly insignificant skirmish, at least at the time, about a month later, really in the beginning of the summer, June 1754, Washington and his men, they travel further into western Pennsylvania to actually a supply stockade. Washington and his men knew that they would eventually face a French force that was going to be sent after them following this affair that had just happened a month prior. Washington and his men build a fort of necessity, as he calls it.
Which is one call it Fort Necessity?
Yes.
Would we call it? Oh, he doesn't want to go away.
Oh, he wants to stay on here.
There it is. Yeah. Bam.
There it is. So Washington and his men, they retreat to western Pennsylvania in this area called the Great Meadows. It's a really cool map that Joey brought up here, right there at Fort Necessity. It's not too far from Fort Duquesne. Well, as they make this Fort Necessity, which is the bare bones of calling it a fort is a bit of a push.
Did you not want to call Fort Duquesne Fort Duquesne?
No, I can at least do that. And there's Fort LeBoeuf up there. And Fort Le Boeuf. Yes. I can use a cool picture. That is a really cool picture. But that's diorama. Quite literally as bare minimum as one can get, right?
Just a big circle of sticks, man.
Yep.
I could do this with Lincoln logs.
100%.
Coffee stirrers. Model builders, let's see your best Fort Necessity.
Easiest one out there. It's like the fort model building for beginners. We need to sell that on whenever we do get a website to put stuff that we can sell.
How about just a big Ziploc bag of broken sticks?
Coffee stirrers.
I'm not even going to buy coffee stirrers. I'm just going to go in the woods behind the house and grab a bunch of twigs. $55.99 right there, my guy.
And then we send them a picture of what Fort Necessity looked like.
We'll send them this picture.
Yeah, so they don't feel like they've been ripped off. Well, Washington has under his command about 293 militiamen, but he's actually reinforced a little bit later by about 100 British regulars by Captain James Mackay, making things a little awkward though. The French force that's actually sent out to meet Washington in western Pennsylvania, there's about 600 of them, and there's also a couple hundred, if not a little bit less than that, Native Americans as well that are allied with the French. But the commander of these 600 Frenchmen, they are actually taking commands from Jumonville's half brother, a guy by the name of Louis de Villiers. And I mean, I can't imagine how awkward that would be. The half brother of someone I just gunned down about a couple months ago. He's probably going to be very vengeful, to say the least. So he's got under his command about 600 Frenchmen, and the French begin their attack on Fort Necessity on July 3rd, 1754. The battle doesn't last long at all. It's actually over in less than 24 hours. It's actually over in less than, it's a little bit under 12. It's still 10 hours. I just did quick math. Wow. 10 hours the battle takes place over Fort Necessity. The battle begins at 11 a.m., and Washington accepts the French terms of surrender by 8 p.m. the same day. The question is, what exactly are the French demands for Washington and his men at Fort Necessity? They're summed up fairly shortly. There's a lot more than just this, but the three big takeaways from these sort of terms of surrender by the French. First of all, leave your swivel cannons. Take everything else. We want those. Those are cool. Okay.
Those are cool.
Leave your swivel cannons.
We can use those.
We can use those. Secondly, this is ours now. This is mine now. Fort Necessity is ours. The sticks in the ground. Yep. Leave that. That's ours now. And lastly, Washington actually has to agree on signing off on a quote-unquote apology for quote-unquote assassinating Villiers' half-brother, Jumonville. Now, this is, and we kind of save, Boohickey for last, but, this is sort of the kind of the interesting Boohickey behind it.
Shall we call this the Boohickey?
This is going to be Boohickey.
Let's make this Boohickey.
Because, thank you. Washington, years later, after what occurs at Fort Necessity, Washington realizes later that he signed off on an apology taking full responsibility for that word there, assassinating, for assassinating Jumonville. And Washington's like, I didn't do that. I didn't assassinate anybody, And if I'd have known that, right? If I'd have known that, I'd have never signed off on this apology at all because I can't take responsibility for something I didn't do. Washington's translator, this is interesting. Washington's translator at Fort Necessity was a Dutchman by the name of Jacob van Brom. Jacob, whose native language was neither French nor English, mistranslated the word assassination. Washington argued after the fact that he would have never signed off on anything that blamed him for assassinating anybody, but here we are. And what ensues after all of this is the beginning of a conflict that will strain the relationship between mother country, Great Britain, and her 13 colonies in North America. And here, what we start to hear. We start to hear very quietly, very silently, we are starting to hear the drums of revolution begin here.
One of these days.
One of these days.
He gets to do that.
He gets to do that on Christmas Day.
Then almost 250 years later, I get to say, I'm really sorry. Will you take us back?
Yeah.
Can you try again? Is it too late for givesy backsies?
Soon you'll see.
Yeah.
Remember you belong to me.
We see it. We see it. We
You're
want to
the
do it.
autumn. Wow.
Oh, God, please stop him before he starts singing.
Yeah, please, Jesus.
Well, Bo, it takes us back around, and I've got to say, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Like
It's a cool episode.
I can't remember if we said it in this or in the botched version of this recording that we did a week ago, and then we had to stop halfway through. But like, this is a chapter of history that we don't normally get to on Homebrew, because we kind of follow our own little rabbit holes everywhere else. But this, I'm beginning to see a lot of interest in the French and Indian War and in the Revolution. I'll be honest with you, I've never really much cared for early colonial history. I'm like, yeah, well, it's here. Okay, all right, move along. We get it. Big mistake, but come on, let's go.
Oopsie.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Big old oopsies. Apologies to our British cousins. Big old oopsies.
Sorry.
But no, I appreciate you putting all this together. It's great. Now, what is in your cup?
So, much like yourself, I too am watching more what I eat, and also what I drink. I'm still going to be the alcoholic of the show. So what I have with me, I call the Summer Red Coat. It is a little red, but what it is actually 0 sugar cran apple juice with a splash of Malibu. It tastes like summer in a cup, and it also has about 5 calories, so bottoms up.
Nice.
It's delicious. It kind of tastes like Hawaiian Punch, a little bit like adult Hawaiian Punch.
I mean, that is a way to do it.
How about yourself?
You'll be upset with me.
I understand.
You sure?
Yeah.
Decaffeinated green tea.
Wonderful. Did we bring who on the show as well? Don't you have him right next to you?
I have Monty right here.
Yeah. He's finally made his way back to Home Brew. I don't know if we were. I can't remember if we were recording or not.
I think we were. But okay, there he is.
There he is.
He's back again. If you, Monty, I thought at various points throughout the episode I should just like.
Speaking of that's so funny. I'm just popping in.
I would say that this operation of Mr. Washington is about 90% successful.
Yes.
I think this would be really fun to just periodically peep in Winston Churchill. Actually, hold please.
There he is.
In bronze. He could just come on and randomly start smelling like that. What do I have? I got a whole bunch of stuff here. Let's see.
I did find
Superman action figures. In preparation for the new film.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I did find some of our Home Brew.
Oh, yeah. This whole camera blurred background thing is really just not living.
It's not conducive to showing anything other than my mug. Nobody wants to see that.
I hate it.
Same.
Anyways, as always, a blast. Remember, go join us on the Buy Me Coffee page. Help us out that way. And all of our designs are done by the Bearded Historian. And of course, we are sponsored, in fact, by Civil War Trails. If you or someone you know wants to get involved with homebrew history or help us out in any way, you just fire off an email to us, and we'll be happy to hear from you. And you can check us out weekly on all the places where you get your podcast and right over here on YouTube. Really, I kind of feel like that sort of covers all of our bases.
Yes, and before we sign off this evening, I would like to take just a brief second to really share my appreciation with a lot of our viewers and our listeners. As some of you may know, unfortunately, one of my cousins was in a terrible accident. He has lost a leg, and the good news is that he is back home. He is stable, but he also has a long way to go, starting a whole brand new life. But I had several listeners who reached out to me personally to share their thoughts, prayers, and good things for him. And a lot of people have asked me to keep them updated with them. So thank you, guys and gals, for asking about Tristan. He is back home. He is doing much better, and I really appreciate it, guys. Love you, Tristan.
All right, everybody. Here's the thing. Here's to you, and here's to Bo, and here's to G. Washington,
You know
and
it.
here's to Tristan. We'll see you next time.
Cheers, guys.